The water is stored inside these tanks before it goes into the factory to get its bubbles. But where does the water come from? The water comes from this spring, where rainwater has collected underground for thousands of years.
It bubbles up to the surface and is sent through pipes into the factory.
And it's sent to something called a chiller. The chiller cools down the water so that it's nice and cold before it gets put into bottles. But the water inside the chiller looks like this. It's still, which means it doesn't have any bubbles. It's not fizzy like this one. So how does still water become fizzy water?
It's time for some bubbles.
The still water is made fizzy by these two tanks. This tank is called a carbonation tank. It makes the water fizzy by pushing a gas called carbon dioxide into the water. Here's how it works.
Water contains a gas called oxygen. To make the water fizzy, we need to remove the oxygen. Inside the tank is a metal plate with holes in it, like a sieve. The holes are so small that as the water squeezes through them, the oxygen gas escapes.
The mixture is getting lovely and smooth, and the metal arm makes sure that it's light and has lots of air in it.
When the mixing is finished, it's poured into another container.
The finished mixture is called batter, and it's just like the batter you use to make pancakes. Look at the way it's just splatting into this big tank. And now we're off to the cone making machine. Our tank of batter has been hooked up to the machine and we're ready to go. The batter is pushed along this blue pipe and into this metal moving arm. And at the end is a nozzle, which squirts out 5 blobs of batter onto this hot moving plate. The 5 blobs of batter look a little bit like a flower at the beginning. The moving hot plate is really special because it's got lots of little squares cut into it, and that's what gives the ice cream cones that criss-cross pattern, and it's called a waffle pattern. Have you ever wondered how popcorn works? Why and how does it pop? Let's find out.
How does it work?
Popcorn.
When we eat popcorn, it looks like this. Soft, white and fluffy. They look a bit like little clouds, don't they? But it starts out like this, as pieces of corn that we call kernels. But to turn this into popcorn, we need to cook it so that it gets hot. This is microwave popcorn, and inside the bag are lots of kernels of corn like the ones I've just shown you.
And we're going to cook it inside the microwave. You might even cook popcorn like this at home. Remember, you should always get a grown-up to help you use the microwave.
Nothing's happening yet, but that's because we need to wait for those kernels of corn to get really hot. It smells really good already though. Can you hear that? The corn has started to pop, turning it into popcorn. Do you like pasta? I love all the different shapes and sizes, from small tubes to little shells. And of course, spaghetti. But what's in pasta and how is it made? Let's find out.
How is it made?
Pasta.
It all starts with a giant pasta making machine, and we're going to find out how dried pasta like this is made.
This is a pasta factory, and all these machines mean it's very noisy.
In this factory, pasta is made from 2 ingredients, water and something called semolina. This is semolina here. It looks like a yellow powder, but it's made from a type of wheat called durum wheat that grows in fields. It's also used to make some breakfast cereals. But when you mix water and semolina together, you get pasta. But we're going to need a lot more semolina than this. These huge tanks are full of semolina. Each one can hold about 150 tons worth. That's the same as about 150 cars. But how does all that semolina get from the tanks to inside the factory? Yogurt is made from milk, cream, some milk powder and a bit of sugar.
And once they're mixed together, they get sent onto the next part of the factory.
The next stage happens in here, and it's very noisy.
Look at all those pipes. All the ingredients that have now been mixed together are heated up. This is called pasteurization, and it gets rid of any bad bacteria that could be in the milk.
Once it's reached the right temperature, the pasteurized mixture is moved into one of these. They're called incubation tanks, and they are huge. Now a special ingredient is added, and it will turn the milky mixture into yogurt. This special ingredient is called a starter culture, and it's made of a mix of good bacteria. Bacteria has to be kept in the freezer because as soon as it gets warm and is put in the incubator, it starts to multiply.
The starter culture is added to the yogurt and then left to get to work.
And when it's added to the milky mixture inside this incubation tank, it starts to multiply. How does a cake work? Let's find out.
How does it work?
A cake.
To show you how a cake works, I'm going to bake a cake for the party. Now I need to mix all of our ingredients together in a big bowl.
In goes the sugar with the flour, and then the butter. And now for the fun bit, cracking the eggs.
And the milk. Oh, and we mustn't forget this. This is called baking powder, and it's a special ingredient that will make sure our cake rises in the oven.
Now we need to mix all our ingredients together. And for that, we need an electric whisk.
Watch this. Because it works really quickly, it's going to put lots of air bubbles into the mix. Listen to the sound of the electric whisk. It's like an aeroplane taking off. Okay, have a look in my bowl now. Can you see that all of the different ingredients have been mixed together into a smooth, runny mixture? The toothpaste ingredients arrive at the factory in lorries like this one. It's called a tanker, and it looks a bit like a tube of toothpaste, doesn't it? This tanker is full of something called silica that looks like this, a white powder, and it gets pushed through the tubes way up into the factory.
As well as silica, there are other ingredients to be used.
And they have quite complicated names like xanthan gum or trisodium citrate dihydrate. Try saying that quickly. The first thing is they're all taken to a giant mixer.
And this is it. All of the ingredients are mixed together in this giant tank to make a paste that we call toothpaste. But it's not quite ready yet.
The toothpaste travels from the mixture all the way along these pipes into these big silver pots where some of the toothpaste gets its colour. We have red and blue, and look, you can even see some of the red and blue dye around the machine. Once the colour has been added, all the toothpaste gets pushed through these pipes that go down into the floor. Where do you think it goes next?
It comes through the ceiling to the floor below, through these pipes. One pipe is carrying red toothpaste, the other blue toothpaste, and the last one, white toothpaste. Do you know how a toilet is made? Let's find out.
How is it made?
A toilet.
We'll start here, in an enormous toilet factory.
This busy factory makes over 1,500 toilets a day.
Toilets are made from this. It's called clay. But it's not like the stuff you play with. This is a runny liquid.
Clay comes from the ground and it's used to make lots of different things. Like a bowl you can eat your breakfast from, a plant pot, or a piggy bank.
It's being poured through this pipe into this huge tank. It's being swirled around to stop any lumpy bits. It looks a bit like a muddy shower, doesn't it? Next, it goes into another tank where it's bounced around.
This bouncing around is called vibration. The clay is shaken around so much, it smooths out any small lumps and bumps.
I've got my special camera with me so I can get up close to the clay and show you what it looks like. Here goes. The outside of a police car starts off like an ordinary white car. If it wasn't for the blue light on top, you wouldn't even know this was a police car. But all that's about to change with lots of these. And here, the reflective material is cut into all the stickers that are needed for the police car.
The machine uses a special cutter. It moves really fast.
Jake is popping out all of the different pieces from the sheet of material, and then he's going to take them over to be stuck on the car. But how do you think he's going to stick them on? Well, all of those different shapes and strips have a sticky back. They're just like giant stickers.
Reflective stickers are made in layers. The first layer is made of a shiny clear plastic called acrylic. A stamp is used to press pyramid shapes called prisms into the acrylic. The layer of prisms is laid upside down onto another piece of acrylic. In just 1 centimetre, there are 5,000 prisms. Most houses and buildings are made with lots of bricks. The bricks are built into walls that hold up the roof and keep out the rain and wind, helping us to stay warm and safe. They have to be very strong and last a long time.
But do you know how bricks are made? Let's go and find out.
How is it made?
A brick.
Well, to make a brick, you have to start off in a place like this. It's called a quarry.
A quarry is a place where we dig in the ground for things like rock or sand. This digger is digging for something used to make bricks. Clay.
This is clay. It's found underground and it's full of water, which makes it all squishy. Just listen to the sound. All squelchy and soft. Clay can be squished into all sorts of shapes and it's used to make lots of different things. Clay makes dinner plates, plant pots. You might have even used clay yourself. Look, I've turned some clay into a little man. As well as clay, bricks are made from this, sand.
This wood is going to be used to make an insect hotel, like this one.
This is Rory, and he's going to be using this big green machine. It's called a plane. A plane is a bit like a giant potato peeler. As Rory pushes the piece of wood through the plane, it peels off the top layer just like potato skin. It means he can get the wood to just the right thickness for the insect hotel.
Next, Rory cuts the wood to the right length using a saw. Now, Rory uses a different saw, which is on a slope, so he can cut the ends at angles. Rory's fixing the 3 pieces of wood together using screws and an electric screwdriver.
He's also adding an extra piece of wood in the shape of a triangle to make the back.
Now the frame is made smooth with a sander, and then it's painted with wood stain to protect it from the rain.
So the frame is ready, but what about all the bits that go on the inside? Well, first, we need a block of wood for all the insects to crawl into. But for that, we need to make them some hiding places. Tricycles are great fun. They're a bit like bicycles, except they have 3 wheels instead of 2. And that helps you to balance. Off I go. But do you know how a tricycle is made? Let's find out.
How is it made?
A tricycle.
To see how a tricycle is made, I've come here. Inside that workshop, they make lots of tricycles, some for grown-ups and some for children. Let's go see how one's made. To make a tricycle, first the mechanics open up this box. And can you believe that all the parts needed to build one tricycle fit inside? Over to you, Scott.
There are 25 parts to this tricycle, and they're all different shapes and sizes.
Can you guess what some of them are going to be? This is one of the pedals, the part you push with your feet to turn the wheels. And what about this? Well, these are the handlebars, the bit you hold with your hands. And what about this one? This is called the saddle, and it's the bit you sit on.
A hot air balloon.
Hot air balloons are really big. They have a basket for people to ride in and a huge balloon which lifts the basket high into the sky.
And this is where they're made. Yes, this is a hot air balloon factory. And that is a lot of material.
The material is called nylon and it arrives in the factory in big rolls. So how does all this become a balloon? First, the material needs to be cut into smaller pieces with a small round cutter.
Here it is. It fits inside the machine, just here. Let's see it cut the material into smaller pieces using my special camera.
With my special camera in place, it's time to turn the machine on. The cutter is programmed by a computer to cut the strips into the right size. It moves along really fast.
It doesn't look like it's doing anything, but believe it or not, that is cutting the material into smaller pieces. First, Sean is putting a nice soft layer around my arm, and it looks like a big long sock. There's even a little sock for my thumb. Next, Sean is wrapping my arm in padding. This will make the bandage really comfortable.
It's lovely and soft.
Now it's time for the bandage, and there are lots of different colours you can choose from. I've gone with blue. First, Sean has dipped the bandage in water, and that's made it easy to work with. And it's sticky, so it sticks to itself as it's being wrapped around my arm. It does feel really warm. It's a lovely, cosy, snuggly feeling. And the bandage sets really quickly. That means it goes hard, and that's what will protect my bone and help it to get better. Oh, that's such a strange feeling.
Sean smooths the cast out and then he's finished.
My arm feels really protected and safe.
I love the colour too. You can have all sorts of colours. Red, green, how about pink? How is it made?
A woolly hat.
Your woolly hat starts off in a place like this, a sheep farm. And that's because the wool that makes your woolly hat actually comes from a sheep's coat. And there are a lot of sheep here. There we go. This is Lewis, and he's going to show us how you get wool from a sheep. The first thing Lewis does is to clip the woolly coat off the sheep, and to do that, he uses this. It's called a shear to do something called shearing.
The sheep are sheared one by one. The sheep is held very still and Lewis snips away quickly so that all the woolly coat is cut off.
A shear is a bit like a pair of scissors. Can you see? Lewis is using it to cut the wool off the sheep, but it doesn't hurt the sheep at all. It's just like having a haircut. Can you hear the sound of the shears? What does it sound like? I think it sounds just like a small engine. workers here are building a new road called a motorway. Motorways are really big roads and lots of cars and lorries travel on them. Have you been on a motorway? You should never play on a building site, but we've been given special permission to see how a road is made. First, a big digger arrives. It's called an excavator, and it works to dig up the soft ground ready for the road to be laid. Just look how much soil they're digging up. And can you hear it creaking as it scoops up the dirt, lifts it high in the air, and then dumps it in the back of the bulldozer?
After a lot of digging, the workers are ready to start building the road. First, a big truck arrives and delivers gravel.
Now that is a lot of gravel. I love the way the truck tips it all the way up in the air. I've got some gravel here. It's made of lots of little stones, and the workers need to spread it all over the area where the road is going to be made. Drums are great fun, but do you know how they're made? Let's go find out.
How is it made?
A drum.
We're in a drum factory, and making a drum begins with this. Here we have lots of very thin slices of wood. It's called veneer, and it's the first thing we need to make a drum. Come with me, and I'll show you how this turns into this. For each drum, lots of layers of veneer are stuck together with a thin layer of glue. This makes the drum nice and strong.
The glued together pieces of wood are now taken to a special machine that keeps them nicely pressed together while they dry.
And now our thin sheets of wood are ready to be made into a drum. But can you see the wood is still really bendy? That's important because a drum is round, so our wood needs to be able to bend into a round shape. Listen to that wibbly wobbly sound. Doesn't it sound funny?
How is it made?
A table.
To make a wooden table, you need a big tree, and you find those in a forest.
All wood comes from trees. This machinery is cutting the trees down so the wood can be used to make things.
Wow. These trees are about a year old. This one is nearly 5, and look, it's bigger than me. But finally, they'll grow to be this big. This is a special forest, and every time a tree is cut down, a new one is grown in its place. That way, we'll always have lots of wood to make new things, like a wooden table.
And here is a busy factory where these furniture makers turn wood into brilliant things we can all use. Like a front door, a stool you can sit on, or a toy you can play with.
We're going to see how a table just like this one in the drawing is going to be made. Let's find out.
How is it made?
Soft play.
To find out, I've come here to a soft play factory. They make lots of soft play items here. They come in different shapes and sizes, lots of different bright colours, and of course, they're all soft, even the floor. Let's see how they make the floor. Like all the soft play items made here, the floor pads start off with this. It's a material called PVC. It's really shiny, isn't it?
This is Sarah, and she's going to cut out all the pieces we need to make a floor pad. She starts by drawing a big square on the PVC. This will be the top of the floor pad. The square is then cut out. Listen to the sound of the scissors. Next, Sarah cuts out the bottom of the floor pad, and then the sides.
Once all the pieces have been cut out, they need to be sewn together.
And that happens here. Maria is going to use a sewing machine to sew all the pieces together.
Do you know how a fire hose works?
Inside the fire engine is a big tank of water. At the back of the fire engine, there are some levers and switches. This is called the pump panel. This controls how much water will flow out of the engine to be used on the fire. Next to this is a large pump and a wheel called a rotor. When the lever is pulled, the rotor spins around very fast. The water flows into the spinning rotor, which creates something called water pressure, which pushes the water out of the hose really fast and really far, which puts out the fire.
Isn't that interesting? Let's go to the back of the fire engine to see all of that happening. And the firefighters have given me special permission to use the fire hose. And remember, you should never try this yourself. I can only give it a go because I'm with specially trained firefighters. To make sure I'm safe, I need some protective clothing. Ta-da! Look at all that recycling! It smells a little bit. And now, this huge metal arm inside the hopper has come down from the lorry and is dragging all the recycling up and pulling it to the back. Woohoo! The recycling lorry, it sounds alive. It's making so many noises. Even when it stops, it goes... It's a bit like it's sneezing.
That was so much fun. Let's see it again in slow motion. Here comes the bin. Tipping, tipping, and there goes the recycling.
Hello, I'm Maddie, and guess what? I bet that you've been to the toilet today. I know I have, and a lot of other people will have too. We've all got toilets in our homes, and yours probably looks a lot like this one. Toilets are everywhere because we all need to use them. But do you know how a toilet works? Let's find out.
How does it work?
Toilet flush.
There are two parts to a toilet. This big square part is called the cistern and it's full of water. And then this bit underneath is called the bowl. Have you ever wondered how your poo and wee disappear when you press this button? Well, to find out, we need to look deeper inside the toilet.
When you press the flush button, it moves a lever, which pulls a plug out of a hole at the bottom of the cistern. Fresh water flushes out of the cistern into the toilet bowl below. The water is so powerful that it pushes through the old water and your wee or poo out through the pipe at the bottom of the toilet bowl. When the water has left the cistern, air travels up the pipe. It makes a funny gurgling noise.
Hello, I'm Maddie, and today I'm on a building site. Just think, the house or flat where you live once started off like this. A great big pile of bricks and wood ready to be made into a building. You should never go onto a building site without a grown-up, but we've got special permission to show you something really exciting. A lot of the things used to make houses are very heavy. Far too heavy for me to pick up, so I need something super clever to help me.
Can you guess what it is?
A crane! A crane is the safest way to move things around that are too heavy for people to pick up. But do you know how a crane works? Let's find out.
How does it work?
A crane.
Before the crane can do anything, it needs to stand on its own feet.
You should never play around vehicles. Always make sure you're near a grown-up. These special feet keep the crane steady when it picks up heavy things and stops it rolling away. Look how it's lifting the wheels off the ground.
Hamsters are nocturnal, which means they are awake at night and they sleep during the day. I've got a special camera with me that will let us see in the dark. Oh, here he comes. There he goes. Look at his little feet, spinning the wheel round and round and round. He's going really fast, isn't he? No, he's still going. Well done, Herbert. But do you know how a hamster wheel works? Well, let's find out. This is a wheel just like the one in Herbert and Helena's cage. This bit inside is called the running track because that's where a hamster runs. And can you see, if you look closely, these little ridges on the inside of the running track? This is where a hamster uses its paw to grip onto the ridges and pushes the wheel around and round. I'm Maddie, and today I've come to see a very exciting vehicle. See if you can guess what it is. It carries people in it, it doesn't have wings, and it has a big piece of metal on top that spins round and round. Can you guess what it is? That's right, it's a helicopter. Noisy, isn't it? This bit of the helicopter is called a landing skid, and there are two of them. They're the helicopter's feet. This bit at the front is where the pilot sits to fly the helicopter. It's called the cockpit. And then this long part at the back of the helicopter is called the tail boom, and at the end of it is the tail rotor. This spins round and round when the helicopter flies, just like the big rotor at the top.
This big rotor is really important because it helps make the helicopter fly.
But do you know how a helicopter rotor works?
A newspaper.
One of the places your old recycled paper might end up is here. in a paper mill. Here they turn your recycled paper and cardboard into this, newspaper, and I'm going to show you how they do it.
This is all recycling that was collected from people's homes and offices and turned into bales at a recycling plant.
The bales are being placed onto this moving belt where they go to be broken up into loose pieces and then are carried all the way to a special machine called a pulper. And this is the pulper. It spins all the old paper round and round and mixes it with water. So it's a bit like a washing machine. This pulper is enormous. It's one of the biggest in the world.
All of the spinning and mixing with water breaks the paper up and turns it into something called pulp.
It looks like muddy, sludgy water, doesn't it? I don't want to get too close, so let's use my special camera instead. Are you ready? Let's go for a dip.
Can you believe that this muddy, sludgy pulp is going to become newspaper? Yuck.
This ready? Steady, Paul? What's that? This is Madison. And this is Malika. And there's something really clever that means the cats can come in and out of the house whenever they like. Do you know what it is? That's right, it's a cat flap. It's like a little door just for cats. But do you know how a cat flap works? Let's find out.
How does it work?
A cat flap.
To show you how a cat flap works, let's see if we can get Madison and Malika to use it. They like to sneak in and out throughout the day, so I'm going to set up 2 special cameras. One on the inside and one outside. They like to come out to play after they've had their lunch. Watch what happens.
Our cameras are all set up. Oh look, here's Madison. Is she going to get through? Yes, she's in.
Whoa, that was fast, wasn't it? I tell you what, let's watch it again, this time in slow motion.
Watch how Madison pushes it open with her nose.
Did you hear the sound that the cat flap made when the door opened and closed? Listen again. It sounds like a click, doesn't it? We're in a consulting room where you see a doctor, and this is the machine. It's called a blood pressure monitor. Your heart pumps blood all around your body, to your head, to your fingers and toes. And doctors and nurses use blood pressure monitors to check that your blood is flowing nicely through your body. It's called checking your blood pressure. But do you know how a blood pressure monitor works? Let's find out.
How does it work?
A blood pressure monitor.
This is Amanda, and she's going to check my blood pressure. Blood pressure shows how easily blood passes through your blood vessels. And to measure it, she's going to use the blood pressure monitor. The first thing that Amanda is doing, she's putting this bit, it's called the cuff, around the top of my arm. Now Amanda is pressing a button which makes air travel from the machine through this tube and into the cuff. The cuff is blowing up. It's a little bit like blowing up armbands when you go to the swimming pool.
love boats, do you? I like the way they glide about on top of the water. But do you know how a boat moves? How does it work? Let's find out. How does it work?
A boat.
Come on, we're going for a boat ride. Let's go! And we're off! This is so much fun! If you look around, you can see there are lots of different parts to a boat. That's the front, the pointy bit, and it's called the bow. And this is the back, it's called the stern. And then that is the engine. And in the middle, we have places to sit and put our things. At the bow, there is something called an anchor. Peter is lowering the anchor into the water down to the bottom of the lake, where it will hook into the ground and hold the boat in one place. But there are lots of parts of the boat you can't see. Do you know why that is? It's because they're in the water. The water helps to move you down, and it also makes you go faster and stops you getting stuck. But where does all that water come from, and where does it go? Let's find out. How does it work?
A water slide.
When you go on a water slide, the first thing you need to do is climb to the top. Now this is the top of the slide. And can you see there's lots of water running down it? This is what's going to help me slide down. First, I need to sit down like this. All I need to do is push off. But first, I'm going to put my special camera on my head so you can see exactly what it looks like as I go down the slide. Are you ready?
The water is going really fast and taking me with it. It's good my special camera is waterproof.
That was so much fun! Did you see how the water was carrying me down the slide? The water is always flowing downwards, and when you go on a slide, you go down too. And that's because of something called gravity. What else do you like about bath time? I like that the water is nice and warm. But do you know where the water comes from? How does it get into the taps? And how does your bath water get warm? How does hot water work? Let's go and find out.
How does it work?
Hot water.
Your bath water starts its journey here.
In a reservoir.
A reservoir is a big lake that's used to store water. The water collected here will come from rivers and streams, and also the rain.
All the water that is collected here in the reservoir is clean so that it's safe. And then it's sent through pipes to our houses.
There are lots of pipes under the roads and pavements where you live, and some of these big pipes carry water all the way from the reservoir into your house. In your bathroom at home, you might have a sink and a tap just like this one, and to get water, all you need to do is turn the tap on. Amazing, isn't it? But the water that comes from the reservoir is cold, so how does it get hot? know how a lock works.
How does it work?
A lock and key.
Can you see that when I turn the key, this bit of metal goes in and out? This is called the deadbolt. And when the door is locked, the deadbolt goes into this slot in the door frame so that it won't move when I go to open it. But when the door is unlocked, the deadbolt moves out of this slot and the door can open once again. But do you know what happens inside the lock? How does the key make the deadbolt move in and out? Let's find out, shall we? I've got 3 different locks here, but they all work in the same way. Why don't we use my special camera to take a closer look and see how they work? This is the key, and this bit is the keyhole. The key goes into the keyhole and into a tube, and the tube is called a barrel. Now, when you turn the key inside the barrel, this bit, the deadbolt, moves in and out. Can you see that? And it's the deadbolt that locks the door. But do you know how a bus ramp works? Let's find out.
How does it work?
A bus ramp.
I've come to this factory where they make bus ramps. Here, they make almost 2,000 bus ramps every year for buses all over the world.
Here's what the ramp looks like before it goes into a bus. Let's take a closer look. Underneath the bus, next to the wheels, are airbags called bellows. They're full of air and keep the bus level. When the driver presses a button inside the bus, an electric signal goes to the bellows to tell them to let some air out. As the air comes out, the bus gets lower on one side. It's a bit like letting the air out of a rubber ring. When the bus is level with the pavement, the driver presses another button to make the ramp come out. Under the doors, there's a hidden box. Inside the box is a bar fixed to the ramp. When the driver presses the button, the bar moves forward and pushes the ramp out. When the ramp rests on the pavement, it's ready to be used. And then the ramp goes away. The bellows fill back up and the bus drives off.
Do you play the piano? It sounds lovely, doesn't it? But what I want to know is what's going on inside the piano. Do you know how a piano works? Let's find out.
How does it work?
A piano.
We are in a piano shop. There are lots of pianos here, but they don't all look the same. This type here is called an upright piano, and that's because the main body of it, that's this bit, stands upright, just like we do. But this type here is called a grand piano, and it stretches out this way instead of upright. It's a bit like lying down. Playing a piano starts with this, a keyboard, and all these white and black bits are called keys, and each one plays a different note. Have a listen. Did you hear how each key plays a different sound? Well, there are 52 white keys and 36 black keys, and each one plays a different note. But do you know how it works? Well, to show you, we need to open this piano up. under the bridge. And when you're finished playing with the train, you just pull the carriages apart and the magnets become unstuck like this. But do you know how magnets work? Let's find out.
How does it work?
A magnet.
Magnets are made of metal and they're really fun to play with. Look what happens when you put two magnets together like this. It feels like they're pulling towards each other until eventually, snap, they pull together.
Did you hear the snap sound the magnets made?
But look what happens if I turn this carriage the other way round and use this magnet instead. No matter how hard I try to push them together, they just don't want to connect. This time it feels like they're pushing away from each other. Why does this happen?
On the end of each train carriage are magnets. They look the same but are actually different. Every magnet has two sides called poles. One side is called the North Pole and the other side is called the South Pole. And the whole magnet is surrounded by an invisible area called a magnetic field. When a North Pole magnet goes into the magnetic field of a South Pole magnet, they're pulled together. But when you turn them around so that the South Poles face each other, the magnetic field pushes them away.
Let's find out.
How does it work?
A zip.
I love the sound a zip makes when you open and close it. Listen carefully. Now, if you look closely at my zip on both sides, you can see that all the way from top to bottom are these little bumps. These bumps are called teeth. Now, if I undo my zip, can you see at the bottom on this side, there are two metal bits. These are called sliders, and that's because they slide up and down, and they have a pull tab on them, so you've got something to hold on to. Now, if you look at the bottom on this side of the zip, there isn't a slider, there's just this plastic bit. It's called the pin. To do the zip up, you need to take the pin and slide it through the slider into this slot. When it's securely locked in place, you can hold the pull tab and pull the zip up, and I'm in. To undo the zip, all you need to do is pull the pull tab down all the way to the bottom, and it pulls the two sides apart. Brilliant! So that's how you open and close a zip. But how does it work? How do the teeth lock together? Have you ever been on an escalator? I'm going to take this one to get to the floor below, and to get on an escalator safely, you have to wait for a step to appear, hold onto the handrail, and then quickly step on. Let's go. Now, can you see that I'm stood still, but I'm somehow moving? That's because the escalator is moving downwards and it's carrying me to the floor below. You should never play on an escalator, but I've got special permission to take a closer look. Can you see how the steps just disappear here at this metal yellow edge? It looks a bit like a comb, doesn't it? The steps go underneath and disappear. But where do they go and where do the steps come from? Well, to find out, we need to look inside and underneath an escalator.
Inside an escalator, the stairs are linked together in one big loop. It moves round and round. The stairs are attached to two sets of wheels called gears, one at the top and one at the bottom. The gears at the top of the escalator are pulled round by chains. They look a bit like a bike chain. The gears at the bottom run along a track like a train. The gears have teeth on them, and when they turn, they pull the loop of stairs around with them.
How does a cake work? Let's find out.
How does it work?
A cake.
To show you how a cake works, I'm going to bake a cake for the party. Now I need to mix all of our ingredients together in a big bowl.
In goes the sugar with the flour, and then the butter. And now for the fun bit, cracking the eggs.
And the milk. Oh, and we mustn't forget this. This is called baking powder, and it's a special ingredient that will make sure our cake rises in the oven.
Now we need to mix all our ingredients together. And for that, we need an electric whisk.
Watch this. Because it works really quickly, it's going to put lots of air bubbles into the mix. Listen to the sound of the electric whisk. It's like an aeroplane taking off. Okay, have a look in my bowl now. Can you see that all of the different ingredients have been mixed together into a smooth, runny mixture? But how do car brakes stop the car? Do you know how car brakes work? Let's find out.
How does it work?
A car brake.
To see how car brakes work, I've come to a garage. A garage is a place you come to if a car needs to be checked or fixed. Have you ever been to a garage before? This is one of the car's wheels. This is the tyre, and the metal bit in the middle is called the rim. But if you look through the rim, can you see there's another metal disc? That is part of the car's brakes, but we can't see it very well, can we? I've got an idea.
Paul is a mechanic, and he's going to help show us the car's brakes.
The car is being lifted on this special lift. This is how mechanics get under a car to safely fix things when they go wrong. Listen to the sound of it. It's noisy, isn't it? And it must be really strong to lift an entire car. It's very high up, isn't it?